It's the Blue Vote Cafe, a little bit wonkish, a whole lot of fun. I'm David Schellenberg along with Rachel Oyster. We are the co-chairs for Democrats Abroad in Canada's capital region of Ottawa. Hello, Rachel.
Hello, David.
How are you doing?
I asked you first.
Oh, honestly, I could use a nap. It was my 55th birthday over the weekend, and
I know. Happy birthday or birthday, as it was, because I attended. Yes,
it was good.
You
to
had
see
quite the birthday party.
Oh, well, yeah. So basically, the boys came over to my place on Friday. I didn't think they were going to be here till like 5 or 6 o'clock, but they got here at 10 in the morning. So Friday was a write-off, and then Saturday at the brewery all day long, and then Sunday nobody left till 5 o'clock. So yeah, I could use a nap. How was your weekend?
Well, I went to your party.
Yes, you did. It was good to see you, Jay.
It was good to see you too. Yeah, no, we had a reasonable weekend, but we're not here to talk about our social life, although it's fun. Yep. We're here to talk to a very interesting guest today.
And who's with us today? Yeah.
Yes, I was wondering if you were going to ask if I should just plunge along. Joining us today is Dr. Lauren Tucker, who is a co-founder of Indivisible Chicago and who founded Do What Matters. And I can't wait to talk to her more about those things. So welcome, Lauren.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
And we know you are a fellow Democrats Abroad member, and we know you're in Spain, but we don't know how you got there, what took you there, why are you there, and we don't know what state you vote in. So
this is our standard opening question.
Yeah, well, listen, I've been an activist for quite some time, since the early 1990s, during the Gulf War. I was at the University of Wisconsin being radicalized, as my father would like to say. It was during my PhD program.
Wisconsin, yes, the home of the radicals, yeah.
Yes, and my father said, you know what, during Christmas break, he's like, you can keep doing what you're doing, but I'm not going to pay to bail you out. So that was it. So I've been basically, even before then, I certainly was active, but, I was active down in getting my master's degree at the University of Texas, Austin.
Wow.
I was just telling somebody else from Democrats Abroad that I met Ann Richards when I was down there, and I worked for Jake Pickle back in the day. So yeah, I've been pretty active, but it was really in January 2017, after the election, the first Trump administration, when I met with a group of about 30 Chicagoans when I was living there, and really devoted 2 years of my life pro bono. I'd lived off of savings to help build that organization. Jason Rieger was really the head of that. He started it. He graciously calls us founders. But we did start out as 30 people. I was the director of marketing and community development, helping to build more chapters in the Chicagoland area. Right. And I'm happy to say within 2 years, the work that we did, we ended up moving from 30 members to almost 70,000.
Wow.
We're the largest indivisible in the United States.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know Indivisible, can you give like a tiny little nutshell capsulation of what it is?
I will speak to Indivisible Chicago and Indivisible Illinois. I know that, Ezra Klein, it originally started as by some operatives like him from the Obama administration. But what I like to think is that we make progressive activism, easier, more accessible, through, not only organization and structure, being very grassroots, neighborhood by neighborhood, district by district, but we also provide the guidance, the technology to make it easy for people to participate, to vote, to act, to do do something, as Michelle Obama said. People want to do something. I mean, it's similar to Democrats abroad, right? People want to do something. So it's really important that we provide pathways for people to do it. Whether, I did a lot of rallies. And ran a lot of rallies. And the biggest one I'm very proud of, which was the Families Belong Together rally in Daley Plaza. It was one of the largest rallies that Chicago's ever seen. It was 70,000 people, the hottest day of the year in July.
Those are hot days.
Yeah, it was. Luckily, we only had one person to take to the hospital. We had 6 ambulances there, but so it was a little. I mean, it was more. We were expecting 40,000, and we got 70.
Wow! Amazing.
And that's the other thing that we do as Indivisible, because we gained so much experience with rallies, with texting, with all of the postcarding and so forth. We were able to help not only supply knowledge that we had learned, institutional knowledge we had learned, I mean, down to the nitty gritty of how to put together a stage, how to, train marshals, that kind of a thing, right?
It's important, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's stuff that people don't know, right? And then it got to the point where we had invested. Because not only were we a 501(c)(3), we also applied to be a PAC, so that we could fund things, progressive platforms. But it also we not just gained institutional knowledge, but we had materials that we got, speakers and megaphones and systems that are logistics. So when the ACLU wanted to do something, they could call on us, and we would co-sponsor a rally, and they would, we would have all of these materials we kept in storage. When we joined with other groups to do some, when they would call upon us to do certain things, we would be able to provide walkie-talkies. We had trained 200 marshals, to keep everybody safe. We knew logistically. I remember when I left everybody with basically how do you logistically put this on? Where's the insurance coming from? Where's, how do you deal with Chicago police? How do you deal with Chicago fire? How do you deal with Chicago rescue? So these are things, when people put on these rallies and they're big, where do you get the free medical tent and so forth? These are issues that are behind those rallies that everybody goes to, right? And you don't just throw it, hope everybody shows up. You've got a marketing team and, social media, and you've got people doing the work and then you've got to get people, everybody wants to talk, right? So you have to organize speakers and, you've got people like J.B. Pritzker wants to come and speak, and, Dick Durbin wants to come and speak, and, all these different folks. And so you've got to manage that as well. And I'm very proud of that, because I think the critical piece to grassroots activism is making sure that you can empower other progressives to be able to do the work that they do, because we've all got to be in this together.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It is interesting, and I know what you say about the pure logistics of stuff, because we go through that a lot of times in Ottawa, where somebody wants to do a protest or the littlest march, and they just don't know where to start. And a friend of mine was part of a consortium of individuals, basically, that all invested money in a decent sound system. And they would let people use it for free. And it wasn't for the mega rallies, it's for the 200 people on the court steps kind of rally, just because they got so annoyed that you couldn't hear what was going on at the rallies. And I always just sort of appreciated that. And what I appreciated was the love in what they did was they didn't have to wholly support the cause. We all want freedom. We all want freedom of speech. We all want democracy. I think at the top of everything, once we have freedom of speech, once we have democracy, we can discuss everything.
Other issues.
But I just loved how open and honest they were. You know, if you're a complete asshole, no, you can't use their equipment. But they would actually use the equipment for, you know, the opposition for no other reason than to actually have the discussion.
That's
yes, yes, yes. And it's just, you know, I think it was, you know, it was great to be able to work with a lot of those organizations who really needed to, like, you know, oh God, what is Moms Demand Action? So the
yes.
you know, the gun control
Yes.
organization really helped them put on larger activations. And, you know, I will tell you the other thing that was great about it, and I've talked to Democrats abroad here about this, is that a lot of times it's about helping actions in other states. For instance, you remember when Doug Moore won that special election down in Alabama. We were responsible for a lot of the postcarding, the texting that was going on. So Indivisible Mobile and Indivisible Alabama really, I mean, they sent us all of their appreciation for the amount of work that we did because we were such a large group and could help them, you know, help them elect Doug Moore. It's unfortunate that we couldn't, you know, that was a blip. The line of morality is amazingly thin.
Yeah. Yes.
And wiggly.
And remember when Twitter was cool and now how evil Twitter is?
Now it's evil.
It's amazing how it changes so fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, I think, you know, the progressives, Democrats, we've got to, it's important not just to focus on that we're not like them. We've got to focus on what we are.
Right.
We've got to focus on what we're fighting for.
Yep.
Because what's happening right now is just this huge political long con that we've been kind of hoisted up by our own petard, right? We keep playing the game as if it's a fair game. We keep talking about it as if it's fair. God bless them, Chuck Schumer and Dick Durbin. If I was in a room with those guys, I'd have both feet up their behinds. I mean, it's just amazing that they just keep thinking this is the way, you know, we can bring it back to the way things were. Man, that is over. It is over. But I do think it's important for them to come up with their, you know, everybody's been calling for it. What's our Project 2025?
Yeah.
Right.
And so I did write something that I've called the Re-Energizing the American Dream Act, or the RAD Act, where, because I'm just tired of, what is the Brookings Institution doing? What are these people doing? I don't know what they're doing. And so I realized that what I needed to do was do some serious research on what do the American people really want? And I do think we didn't, right? We didn't listen. I mean, I do think that Kamala Harris talked about things that were important. It's just that the drumbeat needs to be constant. Mm-hmm. The messaging needs to be simple. Mm-hmm. The words need to be simple. Not because people are stupid. I don't believe people are stupid.
No.
I believe
individuals are.
I will say the bottom line is they're not stupid. They choose stupidity as a lifestyle.
Right.
They choose not to use their brains. They got brains. They just don't use them.
It's sometimes easier not to.
Emphasize not using them, right? So I started to do some research on, you know, one of the things that, right, he wrote in that 47 rides in on the wave of he's better at the economy, which we all knew was BS.
Mm-hmm.
It's the internet. You can say whatever you want.
Right. It's like, okay, bullshit. He, you know, wrote in on, making eggs cheaper and groceries and so forth. But, you know, it's very difficult, if not impossible, for presidents to impact the cost of groceries.
Right.
But the federal government can reduce the cost of living for people. There are ways to do that. And so I constructed the RAD Act to really focus on what could the federal government do. The federal government can make housing cheaper. You know, Kamala talked about it a little bit, but the bottom line is there's a lot more that the federal government can do to reduce the cost of housing. It can reduce the cost of transportation.
Yes.
47 is not doing it because it's got tariffs on everything, and now the cost of just buying a car has gone up by $12,000 to $15,000.
Yeah.
But on average, the average American family spends $10,000 a year on transportation alone. New car, old car, doesn't matter.
Public
We
transit.
can reduce the cost of childcare. Right, which is huge. If you want everybody back into the office, all right, somebody's got to take care of the kids under the age of 6 left at home.
Yeah.
Now, what it costs an average family to take care of children 12 years and under, and of course, you know, even older when they're, you know, coming home at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it costs between $10,000 to $15,000 for child care per child.
Yeah.
If you were making $100,000, and I'm an old ad gal, right? I was in advertising for almost 30 years, more than 30 years.
Wow.
Okay, so I can tell you something. I was in strategy. I focused on understanding the consumer, what their lifestyles were. What we considered the level of affluence was $75,000 in household income for a family of 4. But think about this. Now let's just say it's 100,000, and you've got 2 to 3 kids. You know, all these folks like Elon Musk and Ben Shapiro want everybody, all those women out there having all those babies and staying home. Let me tell you, that's 15 grand per kid.
Right.
Now you're talking about what, 45 grand?
That's almost half your 100,000 right there.
That's half your money.
Yeah.
Now you're already paying, think about this, you're already paying 40% at the very least at this point for housing. That's on a good day. All right. Then you're paying for energy. What we need to do is the federal government also needs to address that, right? So childcare, housing, we need to address energy. We've got to stop giving fossil fuel companies subsidies for fossil fuels and start giving them incentives to become energy companies, not fossil fuel companies. Because, and here's what I've learned living here in Spain. And Spain's a bit of a dark horse in Europe, which is interesting because it's got the highest GDP of all the EU.
Interesting.
It's got a GDP to compete with the United States, at least at the beginning of January, United States.
Right.
Okay.
I didn't know that. That's amazing.
Yes. And this is really critical. There are 3 factors. I mean, and let me just say, we're talking about Spain's GDP is higher than Germany.
Yeah, I was doing that calculation in my head. Yeah.
Right? So it is higher than the entire EU. It competes with the US. They still have a slightly higher unemployment rate, but that has gone down steadily. It's at the lowest level since, I think, somewhere in the middle of the 2000s or what have you.
Right.
But here's the deal. There are 3 factors. Tourism. Yeah. I mean, it's Spain.
It's Spain. Yeah.
Okay. 2, and this is something everybody needs to pay attention to. Immigration.
Yeah.
Just like everybody else, not replacing themselves. Immigration. These immigrants are coming over. They're creating, companies, jobs. They're paying taxes.
Yeah.
They're supporting the social safety net. They're not living off the safety net. They're supporting the social safety net.
Yeah.
It is critical. And I will say, I'm not saying that there isn't racism over here. There's all kinds. They have social issues. Don't get me wrong. This is a global issue, fascism on the rise. However, even Vox, the right-wing knuckleheads over here, have started to reject whatever. They're like, well, we're that Trump guy and his cronies. We're not like that. It's hilarious. Even the right-wingers in Europe are like, yeah, those guys are a little cray-cray. But when you look at that, but here's the third thing.
Yeah.
Over more than 50% of their energy comes from renewables.
Yeah. That's huge.
Which makes energy lower cost. So so they have the lowest cost energy in the EU because so much of their energy comes from renewables.
Wow.
Wind, solar. So these are the three factors that I think we need to look at because and so I've started integrating those ideas into the RAD Act because if we can reduce the energy cost for Americans, reduce their housing costs, reduce childcare. And here's the other thing. Sounds like a small thing. But we also need to upgrade and rethink our agricultural production.
Yeah.
Right? We're actually very archaic in our agricultural production. I will give you a couple of examples. In Europe, we have shelf-stable eggs, shelf-stable milk. It sounds like a small issue.
Sounds kind of scary.
It's not, though. That's the thing.
Shelf-stable milk?
Yes, because of the way it's a more modern pasteurization.
Yep, I've had it.
Okay, both with the eggs that in the United States we wash the eggs, which leaves them vulnerable.
Exactly.
Which is ironic, right? We wash the eggs, which leave them vulnerable to spoilage.
Yeah.
Think about this: if every single Kroger in the United States, Walmart in the United States, didn't spend so much money and energy on refrigerating eggs and milk, just those two things alone, and they return those savings back to their customers,
Right.
you would see at least some significant drop in the cost of eggs. I'm going to tell you that right now. So we need to rethink how we are producing and deploying our agricultural products. And we need to upgrade our systems. So the RAD Act is really about what can the federal government do, and every single Democratic politician should be out there talking about the RAD Act. And so I did deliver it I had it delivered to Mike Quigley's office. It is now with his chief of staff in Washington. But I think we need a grassroots effort to show these Democratic politicians that they need to start talking to the American people about what they can genuinely do to help reduce the amount of financial insecurity, okay? Because it's critical to reduce that financial insecurity caused by the growth in income inequality.
Yeah.
Because if they can reduce the insecurity, the American people will be less vulnerable to demagogues and authoritarian speak. But when you're afraid of the bottom falling out and you think you're going to get bankrupted by health care, you're going to be evicted from your home, you can't afford child care, all of that leaves the average American vulnerable to these con artists.
Yeah.
And it leaves them to the point where, you see, these con artists see their need as greed.
Yeah.
And then they feed the greed. Because when you are insecure, you're looking for anything to help you. And the number one rule of the con, When somebody wants something for nothing, you give them nothing for something. And that's what these con artists in Washington, in the White House, know. This is the ultimate long con. And what it is, oh, I may be feeling financially insecure, but this guy's going to make me feel better. He's going to make me feel better just about me being who I am. I can be anything. I can be mean. I can hate immigrants. I can do all this stuff, because what these folks want is they want to feel better without actually being better. Mm-hmm. That's the I want something for nothing. I don't want to work at actually being better. And these clowns in the White House have sold that. Oh, yeah, sure. All you have to do is give us your vote.
Yeah.
All you have to do is give us your individual liberties. All you have to do is, if you give us more power, we'll make you feel better. We'll make you feel better about just being who you are. Mm-hmm. And that is not the future of the United States. Excellence should be always something we seek, but people can't seek excellence when they feel financially insecure.
No, that's all true.
But I mean, you call them con artists, but I do feel like somewhere in society we have encouraged people to dream bigger dreams, and it's kind of the Disney line of anything. You know, you can be whatever you want to be if you grow up, and I think a lot of what these con artists do well is take the concept of a dream and say, you know what, I'm going to make sure every single person gets a puppy, versus the realists who say, no, you should eat more broccoli. And they are taking a beautiful thought and twisting it. And I don't. So there's a side of me who understands people who vote for a con artist because they're voting for a dream. And I like that, but I don't know how to slap their head.
Right, and say, in fact,
it's not a dream,
distracted
it's a con.
by the you're distracted by the puppy, but meanwhile, your Social Security benefits are going to be disappeared by these people, right?
But a dream can be, for lack of a better word, a little bit of a con as well. Like you want to believe in your dreams so much. It's just when your dream is wrong, how do you overcome that?
How do you?
Well, you know, what you've pointed out is very interesting and very true, right? The other rule of the con.
Yeah.
You cannot con an honest man. Mm. Now, let me unpack that for a second.
Yeah, please.
Okay, because, you know, my grandmother, way back when, she was from West Virginia, had that West Virginia accent. And she said, Lauren, everybody here always thinks they're going to win the lottery. Yeah. Everybody thinks one day they're going to be just like a Rockefeller.
Yeah.
That's that's where they think the real dream is.
Yeah.
They think they're going to be, they think they could be an Elon Musk. They think they could be a Trump.
Yeah.
So,
but
yes,
that's the dream of America. Like the littlest person can grow up and be president.
Yeah. And you know what? They have multitudes of evidence that tells them that's not going to happen.
But it's the dream.
Well, it's the dream. It's, again, you can't cheat an honest man. All right? If you're honest with yourself, and here's the thing. There are plenty of Americans who truly understand that. There are plenty of teachers out there that know they want to teach. They know they're not going to make $1 million teaching.
Right.
There are plenty of people, there are plenty of college professors out there. Trust me, I know this because I grew up with them. They don't make that much. I was one.
Yeah.
You don't make that much money. You do it because you love it. Those government workers that have been treated so poorly,
they
didn't get into that business because they thought they were going to end up rich.
Right.
Okay? So there are a lot of people out there that I think have been flim-flammed because they've allowed themselves to think they're going to be part of this club somehow. That, okay, maybe I don't have the $1 billion that Elon Musk has or that Trump has, but they're gonna include me. I'm going to get a discount. That's what I think a lot of people are going to get a discount to this club. And then they find out the door has been slammed shut on them because, let me tell you something. these folks that voted for this clown and support these clowns, what they don't realize, and this is the honest man part of it, they got to be honest with themselves, they will never be white enough. They will never be male enough. They will never be enough. Yeah. They just will never be enough. But see, they've been convinced that somehow these guys are going to let them in the club, even though they don't have $1 billion, but they're going to live that life. They're going to live that status. And now what they're realizing is those Venezuelans and Cubans and all those people we love them. You're never going to be American enough.
Exactly.
Right.
You think Stephen Miller thinks any of those people? He doesn't even think his own family, they're not Christian enough.
Yeah.
They're not American enough. He hates refugees. They're refugees. They're not normal enough. So these folks have bought into the dream that somehow they're going to be enough to be in this club. And what they don't understand is that the club they're really in is a club worth belonging to, and that's the 99% of us. Okay? That's where we're going to get our power, is the solidarity of the 99%. But you know what? A lot of people in the 99%, they look like me. They think like me. They live like me. Mm-hmm. And a lot of these folks are like, well, I don't want to be in a club with you. Hey, get over yourselves. Toughen. Get over yourselves and start to realize that this is a club that you already belong to.
Right.
So how do we get that message? Yeah. How do we get that message to them? How do we reach them with this?
Here's the thing, and don't get me wrong, I love me some Bernie and AOC, but the oligarchy thing, it's just,
they're dreamers.
Over it. Like, just real language, but we also have to have a real plan. That's why the RAD Act to me is so important. We've got to have talking points. I must write 3 or 4 articles a week because I get that pissed off. but every single article I write has solutions at the end. That's what Do What Matters is all about. That's why I've named the company that Do What Matters, is because it's about solution building. And what we've got to do is stop living in the problem. We've got to stop letting people live in the problem.
Right.
And part of it is, and I told this to the Democrats abroad people here, but I'll tell it to anybody who'll listen. Mm-hmm. We have got to toughen up, focus, and offer relatable solutions that people can understand how it's going to improve their lives. Now, do I care about LGBTQ plus? Do I care about trans people? Do I care about women? Do I care about black people? I care about black lives because, I have one. Okay?
Right.
But here's the deal. We've got to first deal with, and I've never been a big fan of Maslow's hierarchy, but when people do feel the level of insecurity caused by the greatest income inequality that we have experienced since the Gilded Age, if we do not fix that by reducing the cost of living for the average American family, if we don't get them to feel more secure in their day-to-day life, then we won't be able, and I keep trying to tell this to all my friends, they're all the members of all of these different intersectionalities. I get it. But if we don't deal with the insecurity caused by income inequality, if we don't start clawing back our tax dollars from these billionaires, and see, I don't like using the word oligarch because, quite frankly, who cares? They're billionaires. They're billionaires. They're the top 1%, top 10%. However, I got somebody pushed back. It's the top 10%. I'm like, whatever. Man. I still want that money because they are living off the rest of the people of the United States basically for free.
Right.
How does a billionaire get to be a billionaire?
Parents?
He takes everybody else's money and doesn't pay anything back.
Right. And starts
That's
with a
what we
steak
need
from
to
his
start.
dad, usually.
Yes. And we need to see that articulation in that simple idea, that simple language. I don't want to hear any more about Reagan, like Slotkin talking about Reagan. Reagan started all this stuff. I don't want to hear anything about Reagan. I don't want to hear anything about Build Back Better. I don't want to hear anything that references what happened yesterday. Because it's against the laws of physics for us to even go back there. Unless somebody's come up with a time machine I don't know anything about, let's stop referencing the past. And let's stop referencing all the problems. And let's start building solutions that we actually need based off of what the average American needs to feel more financially secure and more secure with their day-to-day lives so they can plan their lives. I can tell you, this guy's a crazy man. Nobody can plan their lives right now. Nobody can plan their futures right now because nobody knows what the hell's happening.
Right.
Exactly.
Democrats need to come back and say, you want security, you want to plan your future, you want to understand how you're going to live tomorrow, then here's our plan. And in 2026, you need to vote for that plan. And stop worrying about trans people and LGBTQ and books that you don't like and all that, because quite frankly, it doesn't matter if you're bankrupted by your own health care.
Right.
Well, you have it
This
right
is the
in
way
your...
we need to talk.
Yeah, you have it right in your RAD Act. I'm looking at the second page, the plan, making life affordable again. I mean, that's the simple language you're talking about. And that's something everyone can get. Well, everyone except those 1 or 10% can get behind.
Yeah.
But
But
isn't one of the problems, and we've discussed this in the podcast before, but I'd like to hear your take on it. Isn't one of the problems just sheer focus on one problem? And so much of what the plan seems to be at the moment from the other side is just to keep bombarding us with yet another thing and yet another thing and yet another thing, and we're forever tracing after whatever the issue of the moment is, and we lack focus to just pick one thing and galvanize and fix that one thing first.
Well, that's exactly why I put the RAD Act together. Bottom line is focus on financial insecurity.
That's step one.
What Democrats. That's it. Democrats just need to focus on that stuff. Stop getting caught up in all this stuff. Let the MAGAs have their obsession with sex. Call it out. All right, that's what I've said in my recent article about 7 dildos and a ball gag.
Should I Google that?
If these people want to focus on your nether regions all the time, you let them do that. But we need to come out with a consistent message about how we're really going to help people, how we're really going to move the dial on income inequality and income insecurity. And we need to have a very unified, consistent message across everything. State Democrats, state houses, the governor's mansions. We need to have our representatives in Congress. Let me just say this again. I love me some Bernie and AOC. Mm-hmm. I appreciate Bernie's effort, but we need people that actually sponsor and write legislation. If you look at his pattern, great talker, and we need to message people, right? But we need some freaking legislation being sponsored, and we need to do it even if we can't get it to the floor. Because we need to hang these people with their unwillingness to reveal their unwillingness to help the American people. If they're so focused on American sex lives that they're not focused on American real lives.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing I think
All I'm saying is, and we one of our episodes a couple of weeks ago was a transgender individual, and she told her story about everything she went through, and it's really hard to say to that sort of person, your life is way worse than mine, and I admit I'm the white man in the room. You know, my life is better than everybody's apparently, but it's really hard to say to so many people whose lives are so much worse than mine that no, you have to wait while we focus on financial issues.
And let me tell you, their lives are not going to get better at this point. And here's the thing, and I cannot say this enough, and I said it right after the election to the Americans abroad here, and I know I will say they were stunned when there was a lot of silence for a little bit. I might have hurt some feelings here, but I'm going to just say it. Good. I'll say it to you all. I'll say it to anybody who'll listen. My mother used to say this. When we came home from elementary school and we got hit by bullies or hurt by bullies or bullied in some way, my mother didn't hug us. We might have been crying. She didn't hug. Hey, we were called the N-word. She didn't hug us. She didn't pat us on the head. She didn't do any of those things. She looked at us hard. She yelled at us. And she said, look, kid, you got to toughen up. You have got to toughen up. I get it. Everybody wants, hey, again, Black Lives Matters. I care because I've got one. But right now, we have to toughen up. And I will say this as a Black person, as a Black woman. When I say you got to toughen up, I mean all the white progressives have got to toughen up. Okay, if I hear one more person go, where's Kamala? Where's Barack? Where's Michelle? They're not here with us. Let me tell you, you gotta toughen up. I've seen too many white progressives, and I'm gonna call it out, especially white progressive women who, my friends, I call them my sisters. And I've got to take a break from the news. I've got to retreat. I've got to take care of myself. It's self-care. I go back and tell people, look at 12 Years a Slave. Patsy wanted self-care with that soap. And she got the shit beaten out of her. Yeah. Okay, I have a whole history of ancestors that didn't get a chance to retreat, to self-care, not pay attention, not to get over it and toughen up. So I say this to all of the LGBTQ folks, transgender, all these people. I get it. But if we don't focus our efforts on the real pain that the average American feels, we will not be able to build that pyramid of Maslow's to self-actualization enough so that people who are trans, people who are LGBTQ of any kind, people can be left alone to live their lives. I mean, bodily autonomy is very important to me, to every woman. But the bottom line is 53% of women, white women, voted for this clown.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay? It ain't the Black women holding us back here.
No.
And it's not most of the Black men. It's like 85% of the Black men. They're not holding us back here.
Right.
What we need white people to get it together.
But a white man is not allowed to say what you just said.
Well, I'm saying it.
Yeah, but you're a Black woman.
Yeah, but you know what? I do think a white man can say, we need to get it together here because these clowns in the White House are not helping us out. We are part of the 99%. And you know what? Bernie's saying it in his own way. I mean, he's out there saying it with AOC, but we've got to toughen up. And I agree that there are too many, we're too splintered. It's interesting how unifying hate is.
Oh, yeah.
Right? The MAGA knows that, right? It's very easy to unify and direct hate. What we've got to do is focus on solutions. I'm not saying focus on love and happiness and all of those things. What I am doing is saying we got to focus on real solutions for real Americans. It's not enough to go out and complain about billionaires. We've got to show that billionaires are the parasites living off the rest of the 99% of the taxpayers.
Yeah.
And we got Elon Musk, who, by the way, we all know is a family full of Nazis, generational Nazism, right? But the worst part is he's living off of our tax dollars. Starlink, his space program. He's traveling on Air Force One when he's got his own private jets. So we're actually paying for his transportation. I don't know any more waste and fraud than that.
No, for sure.
So what we've got to do, though, is nobody's going to pay attention to us if we do not have a unifying message that's focused on building the solution of providing financial security. And we can do it within a context. That's what we've got. That's the foundation that we've got to build on. Then we'll build on the next, then we'll build on the next. But, we don't even have our own. I think Bill Clinton and, the Clintons used to go to the whatever it was, Renaissance thing, but we don't have our own CPAC. We need we need to get our own thing together, right? So we can get our message together and get our platform fixed so that we know, all of us, what are our talking points? How can we say it simply? But it's based on stuff that we can actually get done at the federal level and at the state level. We've just got to do it, and we've all got to frickin' toughen up. Enough whining, enough complaining that nobody's paying attention to me, enough saying, I'm kind of getting tired of black folks saying, well, we're not going to do April 5th. Man, the first person who died for our country is Crispus Attucks. He took a bullet. He took the first bullet in the Revolutionary War. Like, get over yourselves. We have to toughen up.
Mm-hmm. And we all have to find something to agree on. We don't have our own CPAC because we would never agree what city it could be in. We would never agree what time of the day it would start. We could never agree on the acknowledgments we have to make before the meeting starts. We could never agree on who the keynote speaker was going to be on the first, second, or third night because we just can't seem to focus.
Well, I think we need, I'll tell you what, I will tell you this. We need new leaders to emerge, and we need to support new voices. The Fourth Estate, the journalists have kind of let us all down, which, they're out for their own books and and the only time they ever turn into people that really support the movement is when they get fired from MSNBC or they leave New York Times, and now they've got to actually realize they've got to be part of the 99%. I do think that they had focus with the Democratic convention. Mm-hmm, I do think they repeated a lot of the right messages. Convention. It was an excellent convention. It's just unfortunate that the shenanigans around it, behind it, there's so many things that just undermined the entire project there. But we can do one of those really well when we put our minds to it. It's not like it can't be done. And that's what solution building is all about, right? That's what matters is all about. It's like, we'll throw away the baby with the bathwater. Build on what works and stop doing the stuff that doesn't work. So that's why I'm angry at Schumer. He keeps doing stuff that's not working. When it comes to, right? I mean, when it comes to the continuing resolution, what he should have done is think about it. Okay, you got all these technology geeks around you. You know what? Sometimes you just need to unplug it. We need a reboot. And unplugging would have caused a reboot. And here's the other thing. Had the government shut down, man, all those Republicans, they would have had to focus on that.
Oh, that's what you're saying. That's a reboot. If the government actually shut down,
yes,
that would hurt a lot of people, though.
It would hurt a lot of people. No, I'm telling you, those Republicans would have been scrambling, and Mike Johnson would have been like, "Oh, damn, I'm going to have to actually do my job."
Yeah.
Okay, so unplugging, that's what it should have happened. Unplug it. Okay, a lot of people were going to get hurt anyway. We're all going to get hurt. I haven't even had the guts to look at my retirement funds.
Right.
Because I just we're all going to get hurt. Okay, so Schumer should have understood that. You talk about a guy who's missed the moment and has not read the room. And shutting down would have focused those Republicans on that, so they're not doing all these executive orders on, because they would have been like in panic mode at that point. And that's what we need them to do, because otherwise they're just allowed to create, just run a circus there creating distractions. But that doesn't mean that Democrats in Congress have to be distracted. This is the time for them to focus. And this is the time for them to get the party discipline together. There's still too many people splintering off. And that means we need leadership. And I don't think the leadership, I think there are Democratic leaders in Congress that could be the leaders. The current leaders are doing us a disservice, and they need to step down. Yeah, Schumer needs to step down.
I still want to bring up Joe Biden at this point, and I don't know if that's appropriate or not. So I'll just say Joe Biden, and then see what you have to say.
I was to say, here's the thing: I don't look back. There's no point in looking back. Right? It's against the laws of physics. There's nothing I can do about what happened yesterday, but I for sure can come up with a plan for tomorrow.
Okay, fair enough.
So how do we bring the RAD Act off the page and put it in the hands of the people who can actually make it happen? You presented it to one congressperson.
I think we need, I'll tell you this, I'm very disappointed in the New York Times. They did an article about, I think it might be Murphy or some other people that are in Congress trying to figure out what to do, and they're doing the economic thing. I wrote the writer, the journalist, and sent her the entire position paper and said, Mike Quigley has it. Nothing. Because see, even the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Atlantic, the Guardian, they all typically they're working in their own circles, and they're never going outside the circles to find out. And listen, I started my career as a journalist.
Yeah, okay, but wait, yeah.
And we're all lazy. We're all lazy, right? So we tend to spend time listening to the same people, doing the same things. And what they need to do, these journalists need to break out of their circles and start to investigate. I did send it to her. I gave her an email. She never even bothered to say, hey, what is this all about? So,
but all of those publications have also done some excellent work over the past couple of months. Like maybe individual articles, maybe not their total body of work, but I just want to take a moment as a former radio show host, I just want to take a moment to defend mainstream media and say, it's not all bad.
No.
Listen, I will say this, and I'm so disgusted with Jeff Bezos that I couldn't continue. I was supporting, even after he refused to endorse, I was still supporting the Washington Post, but lately he is just part of that technocrat bullshit. So I had to walk away from the Washington Post. I still support the New York Times. You're right, they do good reporting. I also think what has really failed us has been broadcast news. I'll give you an example. I know everybody loves Rachel Maddow. Rachel Maddow was, flacking her book a while back on against the oil industry. Mm-hmm. So she's talking about her book and how horrible the oil industry is. And then what happens during the first commercial break was mobile.
Yeah, but the journalists don't know that.
No,
you know what?
True.
Bottom line is, I'm in 30 years in advertising. I know mobile's paying her salary.
Yeah.
Okay. So, there's something broken with the Fourth Estate as well. Mm-hmm. And I do think that That's why I do support a lot more community journalism. Some of these, Midas Touch and some of these other folks that are doing their things, because I think, the mainstream, a lot of the mainstream progressive mainstream media has failed us. I'm going to say that. I think they failed, especially broadcast.
Well, the landscape is really different now.
But also it's confusing even for individuals. Canada at the moment has this incredible Buy Canadian campaign because Canada is feeling, odd about the United States at the moment, yet so many people love their glass of orange juice every moment. So, on one hand, they're going to hate it. Still, they're going to buy their Florida orange juice every single morning because that's what they like. So there's confusion and all that, too.
Well, I do think you brought up an interesting point, and this is something I've been.
Just to point out, there's no orange juice in Canada. That all comes from the United States.
I will say this. I am going to write about this. What's really interesting is to compare this time to the Gilded Age. There's a lot of people saying boycott, and boycotts are moderately.
Yeah. The boycott the New York Times round, the boycott the Washington Post round. Like, are you actually helping journalism by boycotting those publications?
Well, I'm thinking more of who to boycott and where things really should happen. I do think the Target boycott was, I don't know. I also think Target's just been mismanaged, and I wrote about that, actually. It said, at the end of the day, it wasn't DEI that was hurting Target. It was the bunch of knuckleheads running the company that just can't get themselves together.
Right.
So, again, I call it when I see it, and bottom line is, they're just being mismanaged. But, I was thinking about the Gilded Age. In the Gilded Age, a lot of those robber barons, the billionaires of their day, they were running steel companies, and they had, oil companies, and they had things that were structural, right? It was hard. What are you going to do, boycott steel if you're an individual? You need these things, right? You're building stuff, you're building railroads, you're doing this stuff. So then I thought about it. I said, but what's really interesting, the billionaires of today, we don't need their shit. You don't need X. You don't need to buy a Tesla. You really don't need to use Amazon. If you really had the courage of leaving convenience behind, you don't need Amazon. So a lot of these billionaires today, I think, can be impacted by how people vote with their dollars. And I do think that's another opportunity. People say, well, I would have to wait, and I can't do anything until it's time to vote the next time. Yeah, you can. But you're going to have the guts, and you're going to have to toughen up. And I include myself. I haven't totally left Amazon behind, but I've switched my reading apps. I don't buy, my mother's 93 years old and needs some things that I can't, I have to get sent to her. So I either have to rely on friends, or that's the one time I'll use Amazon. But I have reduced my spending on Amazon dramatically. I think we can do this. We can walk away from what these billionaires are offering, because in the end, we don't actually need their shit to survive. And that's the difference between this Gilded Age and that Gilded Age, that we can use our dollars. Again, the power of the 99% is they're afraid of us. They're afraid of us, because if we catch on and stop buying into, think about convenience. That's another thing where people we want something for nothing, and they're giving us nothing for something, right?
Yeah.
There's no such thing as free. Absolutely.
No.
Right. And I'm walking away from all the subscription services. I've cut off my subscriptions. Like, there are things that we can do that will make an impact and undermine the power of these billionaires until Democrats get back in power and get their shit together and start putting some legislation together that's going to help the average American. And that's what we need to do. And in the meantime, we need to, and I appreciate you all having me on today, because we need some other voices.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, Charlemagne the God said it. We need people to talk some real talk.
Yeah, no, it's true.
That's the first time that quote showed up on the podcast.
Bottom line is, we need people to stop talking like wonks and start talking like real people. And I think that's the opportunity if progressive media would pick up what I'm laying down and have more, I just interacted with somebody on Threads today. Again, where's Kamala? Where's Barack? And I'm like, oh, give it a rest. There are other people out there with voices trying to move things forward, and you're looking backwards.
Yeah. Well, that's why people like AOC.
Yeah, but we've got to have more, and we've got to have people that sponsor legislation.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah. Let's do it.
I don't think there's anything that could top that at this point.
I don't think so.
No.
I mean, you've given us quite a schooling, and I appreciate it. I mean, you're absolutely right.
Well, hopefully my microphone worked.
Absolutely.
Hopefully I pushed the record button.
Absolutely. And we never found out why you went to Spain in the first place.
That's right. We never answered the first question.
Yeah, but I will tell you, it's actually good that we come to this part of it, because I've been managing a lot of people writing me on Facebook or, I got to get out of the country. I've got to get out. What is it like in Spain? How did you do it? How did you immigrate? Let me be clear. I did not move because of politics. It is really clear to understand that moving to Spain will not. The U.S. is too big.
Yeah.
85% of the world's cultural products come from the United States.
Yep.
We are not going to be able to run away because you've left the country. This is not a good motivating reason to move abroad.
Right.
And I think that's really important for everybody to understand. I think for me, because of where, I knew where DEI was going before any of this happened, way before the election.
Yeah.
So I knew I needed to change my life, change the direction, take a chance on really focusing on writing. I am a writer. I'm now a poor writer.
I think
I'm building some followers. That's nice. They don't pay. That's fine.
Yeah. We don't get paid for this podcast either.
No.
Exactly. I mean, sometimes you just got to really take the money out of it so people know the message is true, right?
Exactly.
And so, yeah, I love Spain. I've been here many times, seen many cities, but I have to tell you, I'm Tim to be one of those. I was a data scientist for many years, researcher, strategist, very rational. Mm-hmm. I came to Seville as probably the 9th city I had visited, and I just thought I was in the airport and I knew I was home.
Right.
Now,
Right.
Is it something? I just think everybody probably has that place, that city that they're looking for. Some people have found it. Mm-hmm. My brother lives in Blacksburg, Virginia, where Virginia Tech is. He graduated from Virginia Tech. He's always loved that little town. I don't think, I loved Chicago. Chicago didn't love me back as far as I was concerned.
Oh, no.
It was like a bad boyfriend,
Yeah.
I gave him 3 chances, and that was it.
Focus. You have to focus.
Yeah. I will say that I feel a little bit like Michael Corleone. I did speak at the rally, the Democrats Abroad rally on Saturday. They asked me, but I feel like I told Helen, who's in charge. I said, I feel like I try to get out and they keep bringing me back in.
That's the slogan of Democrats
something
Abroad.
To say.
Yeah. So, I'm still active, still trying to do my part for the movement in my writing, but I'm writing a novel, a business noir novel.
I love it.
Yeah, I figure if people aren't going to believe the truth about DEI, write it in fiction. People like to believe fiction. They take the truth out of fiction rather than believe the truth as it's laid out. So, so working on a novel called The Blind Spot, what's happening at the blind spot, and then working on a collection of short stories called The Real Housewives of the Bible.
Oh, interesting.
So got some good projects, and then of course my Medium page, where I try to. I always say, Lauren, I'm only going to do 2 articles this week, and then inevitably something happens, and
you have to write again.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and for the record, I did Google 7 dildos in a ball gag, and you are the first one that pops up on the list. Won't say what the other ones are, but at least on my Google search, you are the top one.
I try to reframe. I think that's an important part of it, right? Is that we've just been using the same old tropes, and it's time to reframe some of the narratives.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's a good place to end, I think. Reframe the narratives. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lauren. This has been very inspiring, interesting, helpful. Thanks.
And fun.
Absolutely.
And now we have to toughen up, focus, and get to work.
Yeah, or as Michelle Obama says, do something.
Do something. Do something. Do anything. Do something.
My goodness,
yes. Something.
Yeah.
And I think it's important because I think we did get complacent. I think we thought everything was just going to run along, and I think, when Obama got elected, everybody was like, oh, everything's going to be okay. We're all just going to be fine. We can go about, getting our lattes and doing brunches. And we didn't keep we have to stay vigilant. Yeah. Democracy requires vigilance and constant work.
No, and
that's what we want.
Yeah, I was just going to say we underestimated the racism too, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around that.
Yeah. Well, if you look at the history of the world, it's always been thus, right?
Yeah,
there's always been some scapegoat. Mm-hmm. Again, because there's always been suckers.
Yeah.
And there's always been con artists who don't want to give suckers an even break. So, I've studied the art of the con quite a bit, and I think I'm beginning to understand that I'm a relentless optimist, but there is a certain, if this is a word, unforgivability of persistent naivete that is a result of that relentless optimism. And I think we're paying for a certain amount of persistent naivete, and we've got to toughen up, and that starts with being honest with ourselves about the role we play in maintaining democracy.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate it.
If you live outside the U.S., please register with your voting state at votefromabroad.org every year, including this one. Do it now. To find all our episodes, go to democratsabroad.org and look for us in the drop-down menu. I'm Rachel Oikster with David Schellenberg in Ottawa, Canada. Thank you for listening to Democrats Abroad, the Blue Vote Cafe.